Okay, we will close the budget hearing and call the regular meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I've got it on two things here, so I need to close one of the two. There we go.
Okay, we have an agenda. Hopefully everyone has a copy. Do we have any changes to the agenda? I think, Brent, maybe you have one or two?
Yes, so item E, new business, we can strike that, or excuse me, not item E. Item B, we can strike that, and then like to add a C to resignations for Tara Bauman, and you should have a copy of that in your additional documents. And then Jackie also put a additional set of invoices on your tables as well. I think those are the only changes.
Yep, other than in item A, we will be approving the budget guarantee as well, and as included in the memo.
Otherwise, I think those are the only changes that I've gotten.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with those changes?
So moved.
Second?
A motion second to approve the agenda with the changes as we discussed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Minutes of past meetings, financial report, and summary list of bills, including the additional page emailed earlier and handed out by Jackie this evening. Any questions on those things? Jackie, I saw a number of items, and I think it was in the student activity fund, where it said like 1920 seasons, 1920 ad seasons to like Ben Docker, for example, for $30. Kelly Docker for $200, 1920 basketball season. Is that for?
Events that they worked, either a scoreboard or some sort of record keeping.
Okay.
We ask for volunteers when it comes to ticket taking and that kind of thing, but when it comes to knowledge-based tasking to hire them.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. I just didn't remember seeing that many all at once at that time. So okay.
Mr. Cruz turned those into me.
Okay. Rob? Any other questions?
On the student construction fund, that negative balance, where does the funding come for that?
We initially started the fund with $30,000 from the casino grant that was given to us for the very first tiny house. So it was transferred out of the general fund to the construction to fund it, and then now it will be funded with the purchase of the house. So it will be negative for a period of time. That's the funding that I have.
So I'm assuming that the negative balance is covered though just through the regular general fund?
It is its own proprietary fund for like the FFA farm. So we'll have to do a fund transfer to cover it for the short time, correct?
So June 30th, it'll be like she said, a transfer, and
Yep.
then July 2nd, it'll be a accounting adjustment or whatever. Yeah.
Ask my question about the
Okay.
So, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions? Is there a motion to approve those three items, the minutes, financial report, and summary list of bills, including the additional ones by Jackie?
So moved. A motion and second to approve the minutes of past meetings, financial reports, and summary list of bills, including those handed out by Jackie this evening. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Recognition, congratulations to staff, students, and community.
I provided everybody with a one-page document with the recognition and celebrations. I'm just going to call out a couple, and then you guys can check out the additional ones. The first one, right under health and safety of students, we've served nearly 2,800 meals thus far in the 3 weeks, averaging approximately 200 meals a day. And believe it or not, our biggest or the most students served was the last day we served on Thursday. So, you know, our estimates were we would, you know, start slow, rise, and then fall off. It's been a pretty steady increase over the 3 weeks. So, I just want to thank Darsha and her staff and the transportation crew for what they're doing. And then Jackie updated our donations today. We're $14,758 in donations thus far, which is overwhelming. So we want to thank all those folks that have donated, and those donations continue to roll in. So we want to thank everybody for that. Under student empowerment, again, I can't express enough how proud I am of our students, our families, and our teachers. Just a little data for everybody. Jeff Cruz ran some statistics and some analytics for us. Each day we're averaging 130 team meetings. So if, you know, you're kind of basing that off of 63 teachers, that's a minimum of 2 team meetings, conferences with kids and families on a day-to-day basis. And as far as Canvas, you can see the numbers there. Last week, Monday through Thursday, 641 students or families logged into Canvas. It's almost 88% of all kindergarten through 12th grade students and families have logged in. And that was just last week. And over the course of the 2 weeks, there's only 9 students that have not logged into Canvas since we started. So almost 99% of our students have logged into Canvas, which is, again, great. You know, the other ones I will skip down to our family and community empowerment, which is on the back of the page. We've had a lot of community partners that have not only helped us at school, but helped the community. And I just, you know, I want to put a shout out to Kids Club specifically and Premier, and as well as the Sunshine for all their help, whether it's daycare for the community, daycare for our staff members that continue to work during the closure in regards to Kids Club. Premier has bent over backwards to provide access for families, and has again went above and beyond. And then Sunshine continues to work very closely with Darsha and the food service program. We're still getting a lot of supplies to help serve kids and families. And then the very last one under facilities and infrastructure, you know, I just want to thank Steve Bresky, Matt Bixham, and Todd Nath for all their work during the closure. So whether it's sanitizing and getting this room ready for tonight's meeting, or it was in preparation for the construction that started so that the contractors could hit the ground running last week, they've just, like always, do a great job. But I want to recognize them specifically for everything that they've done. And that's just scratching the surface. We've had a lot of people step up. So thanks to everybody.
Good, thank you for that, Brent. Any others? Okay, we will move on to communication and public participation on non-agenda items. Jackie, do we have any? Okay, thank you. We'll close that. Correspondence, Lyon County Riverboat Foundation.
So in the packet on pages 18 and 19, you have Lyon County Riverboat. Just wanted to pass along, since the governor issued her emergency declaration, they've been closed since March, mid-March. And as a result, then those casino funds for the second quarter are going to be impacted. And so whenever they should start back up, then we will obviously benefit from that funding stream. But until the quarter ends and they open back up, we won't have a specific dollar amount on the impact. But that's something we're monitoring, and I just wanted everybody to be aware of. And then I wanted to congratulate Steph Baker being chosen for a scale-up grant through Iowa STEM, Northwest Iowa Regional. Grant was awarded for math centers that she's going to pilot with the 4th grade team next school year. So manipulatives for kids in the different math essential learnings that they're studying. So hats off to Steph and then the 4th grade team for joining her in that pilot program next year. And if there's good results, then we'll look to expand that and add it to our other elementary classrooms as well. So, you have anything else, Jackie, there? Correspondence?
Okay, very good. Move on to reports, or do you have anything from our principals?
I would point out the enrollment document that you have. Mr. Harmon updated, thanks to Rhonda Menning and Kate Group, their work in our preschool enrollment, TK, kindergarten transition from preschool. You can see that those numbers have been added in there. We were estimating previously, I didn't print the estimates, but we were estimating 47 preschoolers. We're at 46, so we're pretty accurate there with our kind of pre-registration. Obviously, there's families that every year, for whatever reason, they just don't see the communications, and so when school starts back up, it's not uncommon for us to add a few more students at the beginning of the school year. TK, again, we were estimating 19 students going to TK. We're at 22. And really the difference there is we were estimating 47 students going to kindergarten. And so the 3 students difference there is what is between TK and kindergarten. And then we have been made aware of one family that has, that will be moving at the end of the school year. And so there's, I think, a kindergartner, a 3rd grader, and a 6th grader. I'm not positive on those, but you can see that then that's been adjusted in those appropriate grade levels. In addition, I started work today. I wasn't able to finalize it, but one thing that we had talked about is continuing to look at the different demographics in those particular grade levels. And so where it says 0 at-risk factors, 1, 2, 3, and 4 plus, I'm basically trying to compile based upon the specifics that are listed below there, IEPs, ELL, title, so on and so forth. How many students have 0 at-risk factors? So we might call them just a typical gen ed student versus, are they on an IEP and are they an ELL student? So they might be 2 at-risk factors. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that I'm working on that. hopefully I'll have that updated for our May meeting, and that'll just be, again, a consistent data set that we'll use to analyze the needs of particular grade levels going forward into the future. It's a lot of work the first time you do it, but after you do it, then it's pretty consistent and pretty easy, just depending upon who's moving in and who's moving out, and anything that might happen in between the year if a student's identified or they're exited from a particular program. But I did want you to know that we're updating that, and then our numbers, are pretty consistent. 783 kids on the last day we were in school. You roll that forward to next year. If we're projecting the very first day of school, or we're looking at our first count day, I would, at this point, estimate we're going to be down to 766, which, that's not a negative 22, so I need to change my formula there. But about, negative 17 kids, which is, again, consistent from what we were estimating previously. So Mr. Harmon's the one that really got me all the data to update that, so I thank him, and we'll continue to monitor that as we're going forward.
Brent, does the high percentage of boys versus girls have any implications as far as teaching resources needed, higher needs, lower needs, anything like that? Because you look at, from 4th grade on down, 5th grade actually has 10 more girls than boys.
Yep.
The 4th grade on down, it's fairly heavily weighted toward boys. Like almost twice as many boys in some classes.
Yeah, I think that's really a factor of the TK. From preschool to TK is where we start to see that, and that's been a historic trend over time, is that families with boys have tended to put their sons in TK. And I don't know if it necessarily skews any of our data when it comes to special ed or title. I just haven't really dug into that to see if the number of males versus females. But I think the first grade of TK is about that sophomore or junior class, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's pretty consistent since then, and that's been the trend as families have kind of looked at the needs of their children. For whatever reason, the boys are more commonly recommended or chosen for TK versus the girls. And that trend you can see is continuing again with 10 more boys in TK for their initial sign-up versus girls.
Okay.
So are all of these the additional demographics, when they're listed there, is that for next year? Like if it's listed first
Yep.
grade, that'll be first grade next year? That's
Correct.
their demographics?
Yep, so they're the kindergartners right now. It's just
Yeah.
kind of rolling them forward. And that's where Mr. Harmon just got me today, the preschool TK kindergarten.
Okay,
So then we'll be able to start to break those down a little bit more.
good. Good.
Okay, next.
I also had just some more information in regards to the distance learning resources, or the DLRs. We put a survey out to staff on Thursday of last week and asked them to kind of give us some feedback on the engagement of students and families with the resources that are being provided. And so I just gave you the ones that have the bar graphs or the pie graphs. And so question 3 was, what percentage of kids have you had a video conference with? If you're an elementary teacher, those classroom kids. If you're a middle school teacher, homeroom or advisees, and then high school teachers, your dear students. And so, again, you can see of our teachers, 2 of them said they've had a video chat with all of their students. 21 said 80% or more. 13 anywhere between that 20 and 80%. And then I guess what's maybe encouraging to me is, only 6 of our teachers have had fewer than 20%. So, and then you can see 16 don't have a homeroom or a classroom. So those will be like our title teachers, or in the high school, maybe an electives teacher that, is teaching multiple grade levels, and so they don't have a dear group because they might be teaching a middle school class or something like that. So, so that's that first one. 5 was from the classroom perspective now, how many what's your best estimate of the number of kids that are engaging with your resources? So from more of an academic perspective than the social emotional perspective. And so similar type of numbers, 54 teachers, say some to most, with some being the middle. So if you're looking at the bell curve, we're skewing towards more kids than fewer kids. But we still have, a few that have said there's less than 20%. So the last one that you have there is a similar type of chart. If you're estimating the number of kids, what's the level of their engagement? So the blue there would be on the whole, kids are really engaged and going deeper and further than they did when we were typically in school on a regular day. It doesn't surprise me that we had 0 there. What was really encouraging, again, is the opposite end of that spectrum. Only 1 teacher said, I don't have anybody participating, or I have very few participating. And so, again, that middle, they're accessing, they're logging on a consistent basis, they're engaging with me, they're doing what I'm asking of them. So, and then it was an 11-question survey, a lot of data for our teachers to really dig into, and it was really meant for our teachers to reflect and to begin to identify, again, some of the kids that we're struggling to connect with, so that then we can refer that on, because we've got an at-risk team made up of both of the principals, the 2 counselors, and Jeff Jager that meet each week and say, okay, these are the kids that we know we're having difficulty accessing. We knew we had 9 kids that hadn't logged on to Canvas yet, but now that we've got this survey, we can really start to focus in on and tailor some specific interventions and be a little bit more strategic to try to get them to engage. Or for kids that we know maybe they're engaging with this teacher but not this teacher, we can start to try to build those connections and relationships and try to get them a little bit more heavily engaged than maybe what they've been to this point. So I thought that was an interesting data point that I wanted to share with you.
So you say when, like, those 9 that haven't logged in, the at-risk team or whatever is connecting, is making attempts to connect with those students then?
Yep.
And so do you find is the data different between, like, elementary and high school? Is it?
It's about 50-50. I think of those 9, 4 of them were 4th grade and below.
Okay.
And then the other 5 were 5th grade and above. So,
okay. And is that kind of with all these, with the data that you provided here, it's just kind of, it's some high school and some, it's
Yep.
kind of that way, that it's.
Yeah,
high school
so,
teachers aren't having any better luck than elementary or vice versa, or not
exactly,
necessarily.
it's pretty consistent, you know, I tried to limit the teachers, I said, just give me 3 names of the ones that you're celebrating, and then give me 3 names of the ones that you're having difficulty connecting. And up until this point, the teachers had been communicating with their principals about, hey, I can't get a hold of this student, and then Mr. Jagger is one of the delivery people for our meals. So as he's delivering meals, he's also making other stops and knocking on doors and saying, hey, what can I do to help you? Just want to make sure that you know that we can provide these things, and we can get you physical copies of stuff if you need to. And so he's been a great resource and help for us. But I would say, yeah, it's pretty consistent. Elementary, secondary.
Do we have any families that do not have some ability to get online resources yet?
Yeah, we do. And again, we're working with Premier to try to provide some access, but there's some families that are just way out in the country, and there's just no way to get cable to them so that they can have some access. You know, we've looked into, wireless hotspots and stuff like that, and we just can't get them. Premier has been overwhelmed, and they don't have any. And so for us to provide a hotspot, it's really difficult. And so what our conversation has been, we can get you, again, physical copies of everything, whether it's textbooks or photocopies. Otherwise, once a week, just come and sit in the parking lot. We got 24/7 Wi-Fi if you're sitting out here in the parking lot. And at least check your email and correspond with the teacher and stuff like that. So we're starting a second round of access to the building for our teachers. That'll start tomorrow and Thursday. So we've set it up so pretty strategically, so we might have first grade down in the elementary wing and our north end teachers here in the high school, where they can come in, maybe make some physical copies and get some stuff ready for Amy or Rhonda to mass produce, and then we'll put them in the vestibules for pickup, so that then they can have a physical set, or if we need to deliver, then we'll deliver. So.
Okay, good. Okay, others, Ken? Okay. Board members, anything? Reports? Any others, Jackie? Nope. Okay, then we will move on to old business. Consider second reading of the revisions of school policies, those listed.
So, I believe you should have the most accurate and up-to-date copies of the policies, the 505 series. Made the updates to the ones that we talked about last time. Specifically, we had talked about 505.3, the honors and awards. And so the verbiage in that first paragraph, the last sentence, the word is may and not will. May not be eligible for honors and awards. So I wanted to point that one out specifically. The graduation requirements, I included that. We tabled it. We want to make sure we remain consistent for the entire school year, but we will be updating that because there's a financial literacy requirement that will be intact or is already intact, but it's not necessarily reflected in the policy. So I just wanted you guys to have a copy of that one. Early graduation was another one we had talked about. So again, in that third paragraph, the last sentence, early graduates may attend prom and commencement, but may not participate in extracurricular activities. So that language has been corrected there. And then I think everything else should be accurate. So if you guys are okay with those, the second reading will make those updates, and we'll upload those changes to the website and they'll be official. Otherwise, if you got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions on those? Is there a motion to approve the second reading of those policies?
So moved.
I have a motion and second to approve the second reading of the list of policies. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider approval of fiscal year 21 budget.
As we discussed before, information provided in the packet for you have not changed anything since publication. The tax rate proposed for next year, July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021 is 13.44559. Go to the auditor and then on to the state auditor, and then it could be adjusted. It will never go up. It will only go down if anything would change within their findings, but in the past it's changed by 0.002 cents, so it's usually not an adjustment of any kind. So you're aware of that. And then as part of the approval, we would also need to approve the budget guarantee, which I don't have a figure right in front of me, but I want to say it's $50-some thousand. That's because we made the economy enrollment, so the state.
And that's for this year, correct?
It'll be
We're
FY.
enrolling for this year, which will get for next year, correct?
Yep.
And that just authorizes us to basically accept that.
Okay. And is that all in one motion resolution, Jackie?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and then I will file the, budget is due on April 15th, and contact the courthouse, and they will meet me at the door to file, so we'll get that done.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Would someone care to introduce the resolution to approve the fiscal year 21 budget and the budget guarantee?
Second?
We have a motion to introduce the resolution and a second. Jackie, would you do the roll call, please?
Jans,
Aye.
Postma. Aye. Coop,
Aye.
DeWitt. Davis.
Aye.
Motion carried. Move on to consider approval of settlement with CLEA.
Andy and Scott and I met virtually with the CLEA negotiators a week ago Monday. Tentative agreement of $102,500 in a total package. And you can see the numbers that would be applied to teacher salaries and extra duty. And then I also included an email from Steph Baker that their membership has ratified. So Andy, Scott, I don't know if you want to add anything. You know, felt like a very productive conversation with the association.
Yeah, absolutely. Productive and nice to do it virtually in these challenging times, but it worked well.
Yeah. So, again, whenever you want to make the motion, later in the agenda is the approval of the contracts based upon that settlement as well.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the settlement as listed, the $102,500 for next year with CLEA?
So moved.
A motion second to approve the settlement of $102,500 for fiscal year 21 with CLEA. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider, I'm gonna butcher the name, Houghton? Is it Houghton
Houghton Mifflin?
Mifflin?
Yep.
Quote for Intro Literature Curriculum.
So, the intro, it's actually, we purchased last year K through 5 into reading curriculum. So I want to extend that to the middle school. So since Mrs. Maxwell teaches 5th and 6th grade, we will use the same into reading curriculum, but then 7th and 8th grade would transition to an into literature. It still includes writing and all the reading components. It's just a different title for a different grade level. And then my anticipation is that we would also roll that up into the high school a year from now. So a 9 through 12 set of resources and materials for literacy, English classrooms. But at this point, it's, $32,000 approximately for the into reading and into literature curriculum. The quote that's included is for like $42,000. The sales rep wasn't able to get me an updated quote, but what we've removed is about $10,000 for any of the professional learning, because again, Sheila Maxwell's already been through all the training for the into reading, and then would be Connie Boovy and whoever was hired for the new English position. I'm talking to Krista Sproke and Michelle Van Wy, and also having Sheila trained in it. We feel like we've got the support that we need in-house, and we won't need the intensive on-site training like we had this year, where we were training 30 staff members versus 3 that we would be this next year. So approximately $32,000 for that curriculum.
6th grade, there's a quote for the into literature also, so are they doing the into reading and the in?
It would just be the into reading component of it. So we had them quote both, and then as we kind of worked through it, the recommendation was, because that teacher is teaching the into reading, just maintain that and make the transition when you have a new group of teachers at that next grade level. And there isn't an into reading even available for 7th and 8th graders, so they do make that transition in that 6th grade materials.
So this is for, okay, I'm a little confused about, there's 2 different curriculums, right?
Yeah, so on the agenda, the next E is really great reading.
Yeah.
That is essentially supplementary materials that's for targeted interventions. So special ed students, title students, but then we also did like a classroom set per grade level for the really great reading that the classroom teacher could implement as well, depending upon the students within their classroom, so that then they'll have access to the resources in addition. So that's why that quote's divided into 2. Special education materials is, I believe it's on that second or maybe the first page of the quote that's included, and then the core classroom materials, enough for 1 grade level or 1 teacher per grade level, is what comes out to the 11,319 for the really great reading.
Okay. Any other questions? Maybe we'll just take one. One motion for both of them then?
Yep.
Well, I have a quick question. What does it go to for the really great reading? That's K through 5, 8?
The material's good K through 8.
Okay.
Yep. And it's really, again, it's targeted for the most part, for special ed or for title students. But we felt like we wanted to have K through 5, a classroom set available for each of those grade levels.
So in first grade, out of the teachers or whatever there is, then
They'll have to share all the resources and stuff back and forth, or there'll be, 5 workbooks per classroom teacher.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just curious on what level that way.
Yep. I mean, the title teachers and the special ed teachers can, again, share those resources, and it's really geared for that phonemic awareness, a lot of those foundational skills, the learning to read, components of the Iowa core that maybe we didn't feel like the into reading really met the targeted interventions.
So all in, we're around 50,000 total,
Yep.
right?
Again, when you think about your big buckets, literacy is probably the biggest bucket when it comes to curriculum. So last year I think it was about a $75,000 to $80,000 investment K through 5. We're adding, again, in core curriculum another $30,000 for those 3 additional grade levels, and then the intervention materials with the really great reading gets us, again, probably closer to about 120, 125 for K-8 materials.
Reading's important.
Reading is important.
I would make a motion to approve both of them.
Okay.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the curriculum purchases for items D and E. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item F, consider contract with specialty underwriters for equipment breakdown insurance.
So we had spoken about this at a work session previously. Equipment breakdown insurance is, all the covered materials is page 57. So the premium essentially for the insurance is almost $82,000. And you can see all the different items that are included on page 57. But then in addition, it includes different preventative maintenance agreements that we're able to enter into. So again, a low bar for general fund savings here is $20,000. A high bar would be around $60,000. So if you talk to the salesman, he'll tell you you're going to recoup about 75% of your premium. If we're taking a very conservative, low amount, we estimate a 25% savings in general fund dollars, so about $20,000. The key is going to be training our staff, like we talked about. Curtis and Jeff, any computer that we would repair in-house, we can get recouped for their salaries anytime that they might spend trying to repair or fix any broken laptop. In addition, Steve Bresky and his crew, anytime we've got an equipment breakdown within the building, again, if they take a crack at it and they attempt, any of their salaries and wages can be recouped. They've just got to document that, and we submit that. And then if we were to call a repairman in to come and do those, 100% reimbursement for those repairs, as long as it's on this list or we get pre-approval if it's maybe not on this list, but we think it should be. And so there's a claims process that you can go through, and just like if you're going to the doctor or you're getting work done on your car, you can have them do an estimate and tell you this is approved, or it's gonna be covered by your insurance, or it's gonna be an out-of-pocket expense. So right now, everything that we're doing is general fund. Paying the $82,000 will come out of management, and again, the goal is to try to maximize that, get closer to the $60,000 estimate, and in a perfect world, $80,000 or even more. But we don't know yet until we try it and kind of evaluate it and see if it's worth the time and the energy, and if we're able to realize the savings to the general fund.
Jackie, isn't there a dollar limit at some point you can take it out of Silo or Pepple for a major repair?
It depends, there's different levels, but $500 is the major repair, unless it's transportation, that is $2,500, parts, we do routines of software, everything now, on Silo, so there's very levels, but $500 is typically the equipment and repair. But it's not always a repair and maintenance as much as it is
A new,
storing it to new,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
So this is, again, maintaining what our current infrastructure is. So it's the repairs to something new. If we were to buy something new, you know, it's end of life, so to speak, they'll also reimburse us for the current value of whatever that piece of equipment might be. So, you know, if it's something in the heating and cooling, and we're gonna upgrade to a new piece of equipment because it's maybe 10 or 15 years of age, they would assess what that would be valued at, and then we would recoup any of the current assessed value. Which again, I like thinking about with a car, right? You're trading in your car. We always think our car's worth a little bit more than what the dealer tells us. So it's a negotiations process anytime we might want to upgrade that new equipment. So back to what you're saying, as long as it's over the Pepple or Save thresholds, we could pay for the new piece of equipment, but then any of the repairs or maintenance comes from general fund.
So even if we, for instance, we put in our new water softener, that'll all be stuff to say, and there's an electrical component to it that is needing repair right now, that would come from general fund.
Okay.
So that's the difference. The only thing that's changed over the course of years is they allow transportation repairs now, but they have to total $2,500 and it has to be guaranteed repair, not just everything adds up to $2,500. Otherwise, everything has to go to the general fund if it's a repair or maintenance.
Okay.
So that $20,000 from the general fund, that's about, I'm doing my math right here, about 40% of a total salary plus benefits
Yeah.
package for a new hire?
Yeah, and, you know, I think Tabby Snyder's is resigned and not coming back. Her salary, third-year teacher, $38,000 basically. So for her, it's over 50%. You
Sure.
know, for a veteran staff member like Lorene Schramm, you know, she's maxed out at like $80,000, so it's a quarter. So you're somewhere in between those two extremes. But yeah, the $20,000 estimate is really, when you think about it in terms of people, is where we're trying to capture those savings.
Right.
Thoughts?
Is that included in the budget?
Yeah, we estimated that, again, that low bar, that $20,000 when we said on savings, I don't think we necessarily included it in we've been budgeting it into management, the $80,000. So when we levied the management, we approved the budget, again, we included that there. Again, if you choose not to, again, maybe that's just $80,000. Again, we're planning for early retirement package a year from now, or 2 years from now. We're just kind of building that reserve if you wanted to go the other direction.
It's a year-over-year contract, I presume.
Yep.
When do the policies start?
We would like to, have it start in May,
Okay.
because really that's when Curtis and Jeff start to gather the equipment from the kids
Sure.
and start to, either work on it themselves or send it back, so we could start realizing some of those savings, the last 2 months of this school year.
You have to create a form for them to be able to fill out when they go on to whatever repair time or whatever.
Yep, and so,
The company should have that.
yep, and then they'll train us on it, and,
Is it something as easy as an app on the phone that can just hit all one to repair?
I'm sure they've got an automated version of it.
Sure.
Yep. And breaks it down by increments of 15 minutes, quarter of an hour.
Sure.
So, again, if you're spending a minimum of 5 minutes trying to diagnose the problem, you can round up to that 15. Anytime you go beyond that 15, then it goes to the half hour, and so on and so forth. So,
But they're relying on, I guess, honesty on our end to say.
Yep.
okay,
they could always audit us, I suppose.
Sure, yeah. Track that in some way that you worked on
Yep.
whatever the problem was for only 20 minutes or for 2
Mhm.
hours, but it took 20 minutes, those things.
Yep.
I'm a little leery of the additional time to record that. I guess is
Exactly.
I'm for saving money in the general fund. I just don't want it to necessarily come at the expense of, what our guys are gonna be able to do.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
hopefully they have something in place that is relatively easy. I would hope that they can say, oh, you know what? If you have a computer, you know it's gonna be part of the hardware, you go into this code, punch this button, and it'll record the time, and then when you get done, just remember to click it off. And it should be that. But I don't know. That's just how I would imagine it to be set up, but.
yeah, I think we've got a training scheduled tentatively for the end of the month. And we'll have more of the details depending upon
Sure.
your guys' vote.
Only vouch for what other districts has that enable that program.
Sure.
Curtis is well aware of that with other districts as well, so.
Have they been in touch with any other folks or Presky or Jeremy? as
There's not a
well?
lot, again, in northwest Iowa. Sheldon is probably the closest.
Okay.
And, that superintendent was new last year. He had that same program where he was previously. And so those are really the only people in the Siouxland that are participating at this point. But, when we went to our budget workshop back in February, this was a recommendation from Larry Siegel at ISFIS that said, you got to at least try it. There's, about 200 districts across the state that are using it. It's just for whatever reason, Northwest Iowa just hasn't been used yet.
Well, I guess for me, I'm for trying to, but like I said, I just want to be cautious of how much extra time
Yep.
goes into it. Which I understand extra time is what also can produce the savings, right? I mean, they're going to be able to work on it for a half hour or an hour, and we're going to be recouped for that too. It's just remembering to do that, getting into that habit. It's going to take a bit to
Be a learning curve.
work through that.
Remembering to do it, hopefully it's not a bunch of additional time, but the additional time to do it.
Sure.
Some people, I'm sure, are gonna view it as a hassle.
Yeah. Yeah, and Curtis and Jeff's time, just like Steve and his crew's time, is valuable. We're already very lean in both of those positions, both of those areas. And that's why right now we've got agreements and warranties with the laptops. They're fixing the repairs that they are comfortable with and know that this is going to take me X amount of minutes to do. And if it's beyond that, then they're sending it in. And so, again, those are things that would change with any future tech purchases. Those warranties we would probably take out to hopefully lower our cost, our initial cost, and then
Sure.
still have a service agreement, but the service agreement would be 100% reimbursable through this program.
When it gets sent in, under whatever, it's not under a warranty, it's under, we list out where it is. And
Exactly.
reimbursable, whatever the cost.
Yep. Yep, and so that's where, again, talking to a few districts that I know that are using that, that's their biggest recommendation is really look at your purchasing agreements with your laptops, really look at your copier lease agreement, take those service agreements out, put it in a more of a preventative maintenance agreement that again is 100% reimbursable. You're still getting the service, it's just in a different kind of accounting process for both us and the company and the agreements that you're working with.
Well, I would make a recommendation to approve the insurance purchase.
I'll second.
Have motion second to approve the insurance, let's see, the contract with specialty underwriters for equipment breakdown insurance. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Consider Timberline Billing Services Agreement for Medicaid billing.
This would be probably our third time that we approve this. We utilize a third-party vendor to do all our Medicaid audit, review, quality assurance, and billing. The county nurse recommended offering, she puts together all of the payroll summaries of what they do with students who qualify during the day, in terms of need, bundle it and send it out to Timberline, and Timberline is their processing with the state and DHS. And they charge us minimal fee, interim, go with it, and then we do a $2,000 fee each year, about $115,000. It's something that Lyon recommended several years ago, just to make sure that we were doing everything we should, and to take care of our office too, which is really nice. It's a specialty and knowledge that I don't have, our nurse doesn't really have, so it's nice to have that there for us. So I recommend approving that again.
Questions? Motion to approve the Timberline Billing Services Agreement for Medicaid billing.
Second?
A motion second to approve the Timberline Billing Services Agreement for the Medicaid billing. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Consider AEA Purchasing Agreement.
Again, the agreement's included in the packet, but it's for food, any supplies in the food service area, and then some additional co-op pricing for various commodities. So Martin Brothers is the food vendor, and it looks like the AEA is still in some negotiations as far as the small wares, but then EMS for the washware, so that'd be detergent and cleaning supplies and such. So
They typically give us a report every year on their savings, right? Is that,
yeah, and
see.
it's,
We've had a long time not showing the
yeah, okay.
Hopefully towards June, I would say.
Yeah, I was just making sure I was tying the right two together, that
Yep.
this was our contract that does that.
I don't remember if it's in June or July, but it doesn't.
Yeah, okay.
and then typically you get a rebate. I think that what's included here in the contract for all those members, it was almost $290,000 last year. So for us, not a lot of money, but still, it's not only are you getting the co-op price, but you're also getting a rebate on the following year.
Questions? Is there a motion to approve the AEA Purchasing Agreement?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the AEA Purchasing Agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider Townsend softball grandstand quote.
So I've got the next three, I, J, and K, all in terms of the softball in that memo. So the Townsend is for the grandstand of 79,375. So you have kind of the drawings of the grandstand. Originally, our original set of drawings had a wraparound, basically from dugout to dugout. But when Todd Townsend was out, he really cautioned against that because of the poor sight lines. So if you took the mitered seats on the sides, essentially from the center to the dugouts, it's like you're not going to be able to see, if you're sitting on the first base side, you're not going to be able to see a play at first. And you sure as heck won't be able to see any plays out in right field. And similarly, if you're sitting on the third base side, you're not going to be able to see any plays at third, and you're not going to be able to see any plays in the outfield. So that's why it's not a total wraparound. But again, these are all bucket seats, so they're like stadium seats that you would have if you went to, you know, a professional baseball field. So the total seating you can see there is about 139, and that includes the 4 wheelchair accessibility, and it is an elevated bleacher. So that knee wall that we have, that's about 2.5 feet, the stairs that will get you right to that level. So again, we're not sacrificing any seating in the first and second rows with this design. Again, Todd Townsend, he has done the bleachers in the competition gym, the football field, the baseball field, and the previous company we were working with, we didn't have any relationship, had never been on site to do any of the drawings. Contacted them to provide a similar type of quote, and they couldn't match. They didn't even submit anything based upon a similar set of specs here. So again, talking to Steve Bresky, very comfortable with that quote when it comes to the bleachers and the seating out there. Second, page 75, the front page of that, page 75 is for all the electrical work out at the softball field with Meyer Electric. And you can see there not only the Musco lighting, but then for the dugouts and for the scoreboard and for the press box. If you remember, our original quote from Musco was for like $70,000 just for electrical associated with the lights. So we're getting all the electrical out there for, you know, more than $22,000 savings. And then the last component there is the scoreboard, and I can pull up the scoreboard here to show you. But my big question, not only do we need a scoreboard for the softball field, but if you wanted to match both of the baseball field and the softball field, you know, Daktronic will essentially work with us to get us a better rate on 2 scoreboards. So I don't know if you guys can all see that, but this is what it would look like. And so the price is for 2 scoreboards is $38,433. If it's just one board, it's gonna be closer to 22 just for one. So we're gonna get about, you know, a $3,000 savings per board if we were to do two. If that makes sense. But this is, again, this isn't a final design, this is a rendering, but it would be an inning by inning. Right now,
The one out there currently just has.
hits, runs, and
Inning, right? Like,
Yep.
That's it, that's only.
it's like
a little-
3 things, and
Yeah.
it's just an older board. And again, this is not only the board itself, but then all the advertising and the truss on the top to kind of make it personalized and unique. And we can differentiate if we wanted to a little bit between a baseball scoreboard and a softball scoreboard if we wanted to make them a little bit unique but similar as far as the main board itself, the inning by inning score, the hits, runs, and errors, and the ball strikeout component would be the same. But the advertisement maybe at the bottom could be different. The truss across the top, we could say baseball or softball instead of home of the Lions, or whatever we wanted to do to make it unique between the two.
So then we can recoup some of our costs with advertising.
Yep. And so whether it's advertising, maybe a partnership with the Booster Club, there's a lot of different ways for us to try to offset the costs of it. And again, you know, I think if we went with a scoreboard for the baseball field and the softball field, not only are we gonna get the savings from Daktronics, but I think then our advertiser pool might be a little bit greater as well.
Might be easier to sell somebody on advertising on both of them rather than
Exactly.
just one, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Baseball one, is there any way to incorporate, a lot of schools have a pitch count?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, again, it could be its own standalone, kind of like the 40-second clock that we have out at the football field. It could be incorporated into the board itself. Yep.
Is the cost savings likely coming because they're identical boards?
Yeah, it's the same materials, and then again, the personalization could be a little different, but it's really the structure itself. All of our boards, whether it's football field or the competition gym, the whole facility is Daktronic now. Talking to Steve Bresky, the only non-Daktronic boards are what's in the PE gym upstairs. And you can't even get replacement parts and stuff for that anymore, so.
Would we be able to
It
use?
may not be Daktronics.
It is,
Or is
yep,
it?
yep. So that was the old board that was in here that went down there, and it is Daktronic. And so tying the equipment breakdown insurance and preventative maintenance, that's a program that we're gonna start with Daktronic
Sure.
next year. So,
So they can come out and check it out and prevent anything that could happen, and we can, whatever bill we get from them, we can pass that along through.
exactly. Any of the wiring that might be bad, or any of the bulbs that might need to be replaced,
There's a
or,
couple down there.
Yeah.
Have a ref down there. There's a couple.
yep. And so the Daktronic, the professionals will do it, and
Sure.
Steve and his crew won't have to,
Yeah.
which is a win-win as well.
Would we be able to use the baseball scoreboard on one of the other fields then to update them, or is that not?
Yeah, I think
gonna work, or-
that's been kind of the common practice since we have that 2880 agreement. I think when that board was bought, then they transferred it to one of the Little League fields. That would be my idea and recommendation to the city is, new board, let's take this one and put it on either the Little League baseball field or the Little League softball, whatever one's got the older of the two. Yep.
Do we have to have more than one bid for these items, or?
Only if it's above $132,000. Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, on the baseball one, has there been any, talk, whatever, of like being able to add in like, miles per hour pitch or exit velocity, things like that?
The difficulty with the miles per hour is then you need to have somebody or some piece of equipment in addition to man that. And where our press boxes, it's difficult to do that.
Sure.
If the press boxes would be where the softball field is, that'd be easier because you could set something up inside there. But
I was more on
I would
curiosity.
think, like Scott was saying, the
Pitch count.
the pitch count would be the feature to add for baseball.
Okay, good questions, any others? Okay, anyone have a desire to take those individually? Otherwise, we'll take I, J, and K together. Okay, is there a motion to approve the 3 quotes from Townsend for the grandstand, Meyer for the electrical, and Daktronics for both scoreboards?
Second.
Motion second to approve those 3 items. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under personnel resignations. I'm sorry, ARS roof repairs.
Yeah, so I apologize I didn't print this, but I have the inspection report from ARS here, and I will forward this on to the buildings and grounds. But the roof repairs, I know it's kind of hard to see here. He's got it broken down by all the roof sections, and priority A being the greatest priority, priority C being the lowest priority. So this is our building that we're in right now, the 68 and 98 building. These would be the repairs, and you can see that they're ridiculously low because he's very confident in the roofs that we've got right here, right now. So together, we're looking at about $13,000 of repairs to this roof. And then the activity center is here. Again, $450 down at the activity center. So, see if I can find that similar report. So, similar type of sections. And I'll forward this on, but an additional $450, bringing us closer to about again, $14,000 total for both buildings. We had budgeted $175,000 because we thought a total roof section would need to be replaced, but again, those savings in Pepple Save will be able to do everything and anything that we wanted to do and comfortably in the 68 remodel, out at the softball field, and all of our other projects that we had planned. So.
Yeah, we don't want to replace a roof just to replace a roof.
Exactly.
So if
Right,
they're
and
not
that's-
needing it.
Right, and that's the value of having an ARS
Yeah.
come do an analysis and figure out, well, what do we need to do?
Yep.
We may get to a point where we have to spend a bunch of money at one time, potentially in the future. I'd almost rather do that than spend it now.
And again, the buildings and
Not
grounds,
necessarily.
like, the greatest concerns are these 4 to 6 year, estimates on the lifespan. So again, that's where some of our higher repairs are coming. But
So
again,
what's the first column in that?
is the priority A, the greatest,
Or like, oh, that is square foot, the very first column, so it's the roof and then it's the square
the
foot.
roof sections, yep. And again, and you probably have it in a file someplace, but that's where we've got that aerial view, and this is section A through, all the way down to section W. And again,
Do you know what roof J is? Like that one has 5,000, close to 5,000 in repairs.
yeah, I don't know right off the top of my head. I had to look at it, but again,
I have that in my office, but I don't have
Yeah, I might have it here.
So as you mentioned in your memo, Brent, these costs are well below what we had budgeted. What is your intent then with the roof budget moving forward? Is everything getting slid now and we're just gonna plop these big dollars in for next year? Or is it being
Yeah, I think
added
I-
to next year, or?
Steve and I and Phil really need to sit down and
Okay,
run through what that long-term rotational spending budget should look like. Maybe a little deeper analysis of these roofs that are 4 to 6 years. And creating a schedule based on those. Yes, we're gonna spend our biggest chunks in those 4 to 6. But creating a schedule based upon that report. Instead of, like you said, budgeting 175 every year and only spending, this year $14,000, 10%.
and I think maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the original budget spend down that we had allocated for these costs was predicated on something from ARS, right? The 175,000?
For the dollars may have been,
Yeah,
but I think what the schedule was basically, Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, it was basically you and Steve sitting down and say, okay, let's do this one here, and basically based on the age, say, okay, we're gonna, based on rotational spending, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Not using any necessarily understanding of how solid they were or anything like that. It's just, this is how old they are and this is what
I was gonna
the
say, we
estimate
went over
of.
that, Mr. Rusty's knowledge. of
Yeah,
what's-
yeah, I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody by any means, but
Absolutely,
so it's more based off of age and warranty, right?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah, basically, Mr. Rusty's knowledge of the warranty, the age of the roof, and we went through and tried to divide them out. And then a little bit of, well, let's not do this whole section this year,
Yeah.
split this, and, oh, it's feasible.
okay, thank you.
But that was definitely just us, not Phil.
And like, just for an example, roof
Yep.
J,
Yep.
I don't know what that roof is exactly, but I do have a little diagram. So it's like right here, and you guys probably know better what that part is, but it's 72,000 was the cost of that roof, so it's $5,000 in repairs.
Yep, so that would be like, again, this section right here on the other side of the gymnasium, be like the band section. And
Okay.
then this hallway
Okay.
right here,
Okay.
band and choir. So O would be the industrial tech, so that's the north. And then A is the 68 building.
Yeah, so that document, I'm looking at the same one that
Yep.
Carrie has there, that came from Phil, from ARS in November of 16. And it was essentially budget numbers to replace the entire roof sections, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
next year, which was supposed to be this year, we have I, J, and M.
yep,
Yep.
gotcha.
okay, other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the ARS recommendation for those roof repairs?
So moved.
A second?
Motion second to approve the ARS recommendations for the roof repairs. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, Motion carried. Now personnel, resignations, Blake Shipper, bus driver, Mark McCarty, bus driver, Tara Bauman, special ed teacher. And letters of resignation or statements there are in the packet, and I believe Brent handed out
Yep.
one for Tara this evening, resignation letter, so fairly straightforward. Okay, questions? Is there a motion to approve those three resignations?
So moved?
Second.
Motion second to approve the three resignations as listed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 2021 contracts.
So they are, these are just the list of our teaching staff, obviously with the one now excluded with the resignation. And then I didn't include individual salary amounts, because it's still being sort of, well, and this week. And then on the back is your coach advisor assignment as well as the position. So just know that that salary, 102,000 would be further divided out, our staff are done equally based on FTE.
Okay, so
So-
that's done equally based on.
On FTE, so someone is at 0.6, they only get 0.6 of the raise, and so on and so forth. So at this time, it's calculated to be about $1,221 each for base salary and teaching. There's a portion to the extra duty.
Okay, so it's not a percentage,
This year they did not work on percentage, this year they worked off of dollar.
a dollar amount.
Yep.
The percentage came up to about 2.29 with that.
Okay.
So the list included will not include Tara Bauman. We're gonna hire for a special education, kind of a middle school special education teacher. We will not be replacing Lorraine Schramm's position, but then Tabby Snyder's position. Sandra Allen will be internal transfer to that, so we'll be hiring for a middle school English language arts, 7th and 8th grade position there. So,
So we have someone moving into fourth.
yep. So Jill Poletsky, internal transfer from
Okay.
2nd grade to 4th grade.
Okay,
Yep,
okay. And then second grade will be 2 teachers for that small section.
exactly. Yep. And then, like I said, Tara's position, Tabby's position, those will be filled. We'll start that interview process after tonight's approval of these contracts and post and advertise on Teach Iowa and then begin the interview process for both those positions.
And then we have some extracurricular openings
Yep.
as well.
You know, middle school softball, I believe, has been open for a very long time since Heather Grafing resigned, and high school assistant baseball. I know those are the two that are, you know, if we should return to school, would be the immediate needs that we would have. And then there's a, you know, high school assistant volleyball and so on and so.
Each year we'll finish one.
Yep. A host of them there. And again, ideally pairing those positions with the new hires that we would have. That's kind of why. we
Yeah,
waited.
hopefully some of the extra duty dollars will entice some additional candidates. to
Exactly.
Fill those spots.
Yep.
Okay, other questions? motion to approve those contracts?
Second?
Have a motion second to approve the contracts for 2020 and 2021. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Announcements, dates to remember. Governor Reynolds' press conference, Thursday. Really deciding to whether or not we return or when to return to school.
You may have seen the governor of Minnesota extended their school closures through the middle of May.
I saw something about what I call peacetime emergency, something for May 13th.
Yep. So
South Dakota's right there.
And South Dakota.
South Dakota's closed, Nebraska's closed, Illinois is closed, Wisconsin's closed,
Des Moines is closed.
Des Moines closed. So
Writing's on
we'll see. You know, if I was a betting man, I would say she's going to stick to her guns with the 2-week closure, and that'll take us to like the 14th or 15th of May, which the following Sunday is graduation. So we'd have to consider backup plans for graduation, kind of like we did with prom when she extended 2 additional weeks, and then it would be May 30th when she would decide, are we essentially closed for the year, or are we coming back in the middle of May? So,
On April 30th?
yep. So we'll see. Like you said, the Des Moines Public Schools essentially announcing that they're closed. Sounds like what's going on in New York right now. If you've been following the news, de Blasio basically closed New York City public schools, and then Governor Cuomo came back and said that's not his choice to make, and so we'll see.
Oh, the same battle's going over in South Dakota right now between Tenake and,
Yeah.
Tenake and Watson on Lincoln shelter in place, and no one's not doing it, so then Tenake is saying he just the city Sioux Falls when he has to, so battles
Yeah,
everywhere.
it just everyone's dealing with the unknown.
Are these days forgiven going on yet, or?
Yep. Yep. So we're forgiven. Exactly. And I think that's why Des Moines Public Schools is saying what they're saying, is because they're one of the 3 districts that's approved for online learning anyways. So their claim and the out for the governor is they already have the waiver for any student to do online learning already. And so her declaration still is applicable to the 396 other schools in the state. So that's why I think it'll still just be 2 more weeks.
Okay, the other date would be, the next board meeting would be Monday, May 11th at 7. Any conflicts with that or issues?
I thought this worked well, you know, with just continue in this format, and I think I've got a host of teachers that are joining us via Teams, and so anybody that can't make it or needs to join us electronically, the Teams format will continue to provide that as well. I'll start to publish that on the agendas going forward too, if anybody wants to join in that format. And then, like I've got here, that's what they'll see if they join the Teams format. So if any of the reports and stuff that we want to share that we're talking about, then I can show them so they can see exactly what we're talking about. Otherwise, this way they don't have to look at me for the entire length of the meeting. The other dates at the bottom there, Budget Committee, noon on Wednesday, still work for a conference call with Jackie and I, just gonna go through the auditor's report. And then Personnel Committee, I'll just send an email follow-up, kind of begin to walk you through my kind of thought process for support staff and administrative wages. But my thought here is in May, we'll bring back recommendations for those two other kind of groups of the staff. And then buildings and grounds, Thursday is kind of our tentative. The city has their meeting tonight, so Jason Chase was having a similar conversation, and hopefully we can land at 2 o'clock on Thursday. But if it's different, then we'll work with them and they'll work with us, and we'll find a time that works for everybody.
Wednesday at noon, though, that one's set up with.
Does that still work for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just do it on a conference call. Jackie can educate me.
We'll educate, go through it, talk about some highlights,
Sounds good.
see what we think.
Otherwise, all the other dates that are listed down there, like I said, are tentative based upon our regular schedule. The only difference is I changed the baseball and softball practice dates based upon, and they have, now that I say that, they actually have changed as well. So they originally put those dates out and then they changed them late last week. Yeah, so I'll update those. Originally, they had planned to run spring sports concurrently with summer sports, baseball and softball, but then they must have got some feedback from the different schools and said they were concerned about that, so then they pushed everything back basically 2 weeks. So that's where baseball's to the 18th, and then softball would be like the 19th. So. But I can forward that on to you. But if we're back on the 4th, it'll be Teacher Appreciation Week and retirement party that Wednesday. So we'll see.
Can I ask, do we have any say on making the decision to close out ourselves? Or is that sort of not in the
If the governor should come back and say, you're coming back
May 15th, whatever number.
May 4th, we would not have enough hours. If she were to say after this next closure that you're coming back on the 15th, we would have enough hours, because all the days up until May 15th, we would get to 10,080 because they're forgiven, and we got like 8 extra days in our calendar. But we have to at least go through at least 2 more weeks.
Sure.
So we can't make a declaration like Des Moines yet.
Sure.
But we could after the next time if we wanted to.
Yeah, I was just thinking out loud a little bit, just of, she says, well, we can do it on May, would we not consider coming back on May 15th? I don't know.
At this point, I would say yes, because it would allow us to get every student back in the building,
Sure.
get their stuff at a very minimum, but more importantly, it would allow us to close out the school year, hit some of the essential learnings, and basically bring the year to a close. Otherwise, we're going to be planning for the first month of the year or the first quarter of the year, how we're taking what we're going to teach the fourth quarter and marry it with the first quarter of 2021. So,
Has there been any consideration of going further into June? Talking about curiosity.
yeah, again, the challenge there is we've required all of our teachers to already work. So going into June, right now, we would go beyond our 191 and a half contract days. So that would be the biggest thing, unless we were to say, we're not going to do anything based upon what the governor says right now. And we're gonna wait and see if she does bring us back, and then, yeah, we're gonna go for a month from May 15th until June 15th. But again, I think that's a gamble.
Just thinking about all options.
Yeah, and those are all the conversations that, you know, we have a weekly AEA meeting and 2 Siouxland superintendent meetings, and these are all those scenarios everyone's talking about. And really, some of those decisions, everyone's punting on until her call this week. And that's where it's been kind of nice with the flexibility that the DE has been providing with their guidance, you know, voluntary versus required. You know, again, in our conference, 7 out of the 10 are going voluntary. 3 are going required for high school students, 9, 10, and 11. But that might change. People might change their mind, again, depending upon what's said on Thursday. So,
you can go required?
yes, you can.
That came out of that task force.
Yeah. So, again, majority of the places that I'm talking to, the only required age group that they're doing is high school. A lot of them are only doing 9, 10, and 11, and it really comes back to credit. And so they want to be able to either grade the work that kids are doing or not doing. But again, even those that are requiring, a lot of times they're doing away with the A through F grading scale and are doing more of a pass-fail with the grading, and then even developing individual plans for the kids that don't have access. And that's why I really think the voluntary is still the best way to go, because we're still providing the resources to everybody that we possibly can. It's the level of engagement that I really struggle with. And again, it doesn't matter if you're a student on a, you know, limited access end of the spectrum, or a student that's, you know, has full access. It's just, we really have a difficult time requiring and holding kids' feet to the fire when all these barriers to the learning environment exist. And that way, we feel more comfortable in the voluntary component. Our teachers are doing a great job of really connecting. But knowing that on average, we're providing 2 lessons a week in each grade level. So just more comfortable in that voluntary environment.
Yeah. You just don't know which job is getting.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly right.
How many kids are providing daycare for their siblings? How many kids are still working and having to support their family, or what have you?
And how many kids out there have moms that are teachers and dads that are teachers, trying to get that stuff done in addition to trying to do their own learning? It's a handful. Sure.
Or kids that are living alone during the day because both parents are essential.
Yep.
So there's just a variety.
So many, that's where, again, I just think we put a really good plan in place, and we took our time and were thoughtful, and then have been very diligent in the connecting and the follow-through. And that goes both ways, from teachers and from kids and families.
What's the plan with going to school and what's the work teachers are doing for distance learning? Are they planning on picking up what the coursework were when they left school? Or
Yeah, you know, we really haven't went there yet. Whenever we get that return to school, that 2-week time frame that we have to prepare is when we will really sit down and analyze. Again, my speculation would be we're gonna have to treat it like the first month of the year, where you're almost reviewing what you taught in the last month of the year and really trying to identify what that summer loss was versus who's ready to start, hit the ground running, because there's going to be a big, wide spectrum.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way you can avoid that, so.
Yep. And that's where we're having, principals are having staff meetings, they're having individual meetings, first 2 weeks they've conferenced just like the teachers have conferenced with each one of their students. They've conferenced with each teacher. And then they're sitting in on team meetings and things like that. So those conversations and questions are being had, and whenever we get that official word, then that's when the planning starts. And that's why we really feel like we want to take at least one day for professional development and for us to have those conversations as teams in a physical space together, instead of it all just happening virtually, to really plan for and make sure, hey, the first grade team, we're all on the same page. This is what we agreed to. This is what we're going to do. You know what? The high school staff can have that similar type of conversation. This is what the day is going to look like for a student. These are our expectations for what the teaching and learning is going to be. So we're consistent and we have that equity component taken care of. And that, again, we're not bombarding kids with content when they return, and we're focused more on the relationship, the mental health, the social, emotional components to the learning environment. And then once we, again, get back into the groove, then the shift happens and the content becomes a greater component of the learning environment.
We shall see.
Yeah, we shall see.
Will be interesting. Okay, anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
One second.
Have a motion and second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. Okay. Yes, ma'am.